Hello, everybody. This is Teen Title Talk with Erin.
And Courtney.
This is the podcast
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today, we'll be talking about the books 1984 by George Orwell
and Little Women by Louisa May Alcott.
Before we do that, we do have to get in touch with our teen selves. So we have two sort of school year questions here. Courtney, what did you do in the summers? Vacation, work, volunteer, nothing? Camp?
Did you never went to camp.
Okay, gotcha.
Ever.
I wasn't a camp kid either.
I did not volunteer.
Did you work?
I went to my grandmother's every summer because my mom and dad both worked. So me and all my cousins went to my grandma's house. So
all day, every day?
Camp grandma, basically. Yeah.
I love it.
All day, every day. We loved it. Like, I would get there and my cousins were already there sleeping because their mom had to go to work really early in the morning.
Okay.
So they would, like, still be in their PJs, like, sleeping on the couch, watching cartoons, whatever.
Love it.
And then we would just, like, play all day.
As a teenager, the teen years you did
I
this
was a
too.
kid. No, so I was a kid doing this.
Yeah.
And then I did it up until I was probably 13.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I think my mom let me stay home.
Oh, just bum around. Read
around
books.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, watched a lot of TV. And then I think maybe I was even older. Maybe I was like 14 when I stopped going.
Oh.
And then I got a job.
Where'd you work again?
I worked at Sears.
I remember you talking about
So I worked at the mall and I had a little summer job and I worked during school like a day a week or something like that.
Got it.
Because like how else are you going to pay for your gas and all the fun things you want to do?
Sure. You got to.
You got to have that little summer job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. What about you?
I was thinking back and it took me a while. I was like, what did I even do in the summers? Because I did work. I worked at the Tempest Bookshop. Mm-hmm. But I also worked in the theater because I was the lighting person. Right. So at the Valley Players, I remember doing all sorts of different shows. Every summer there was a show. So The Wizard of Oz or, whatever was happening.
Cool.
The Last of the Red Hot Lovers. Whatever was happening. I know it was an interesting play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as scandalous as it sounds.
It sounds actually a little scandalous, but all right.
But I would work there. But there were things I did, like I think my parents were pretty good about giving me something specific that I was interested in. So one summer I went to Ireland on like a literary tour thing. And
cool.
Yeah, I didn't read the papers I was supposed to read, but I did still find it fascinating. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool. I thought that was an amazing experience. And one summer, this one I didn't love as much, but I went to a women in technology camp just for like a week one summer when I was like 14, I think, or something.
Women in technology, that would not...
I made a noisemaker. It was like... Cool. I was soldering and doing all that.
Fun.
So that was kind of interesting at Vermont Technical College. And then one summer I did a film class at UVM. And I remember like doing a film about like doing a mini profile of each of my friends. We're like lighting fireworks in a silo. Oh. Roman candles in a silo.
Okay.
Not great, but good footage. Interesting stuff. Sure. So, it was kind of a mixed bag of classes versus work versus theater stuff.
You got pretty busy.
I think so.
I just watch TV mostly.
I think that's good too.
It's not really, but
watching Braveheart, just bawling your eyes out.
No, we watch things that were on in the middle of the day.
The soaps?
So it would be like Soaps, The Monkees.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these old shows from the 60s.
Yes.
We watched,
I know.
Like Bewitched and like stuff like that.
My house didn't have any good reception, right? So we had like CBS. Mm-hmm. But my grandma would tape old shows and send them via VHS. So we also did that same thing.
I love that.
All right, now let's jump to how did you feel about the start of school? Once it came around and summer was over, were you excited? Were you dreading it? Did you have any start of school rituals at all?
I loved the start of school.
You did? Just that feeling?
I loved school. Like, I don't know.
I can see it on your face.
There's a feeling. I really enjoyed it. There's like a smell associated with the first
fall,
day of school.
too.
Yes, in the fall. And that like kind of damp smell in the morning when you're waiting outside for the bus. And like it's cool and a little bit misty, you know?
That's
Like
true.
there's such a feeling.
There is a feeling.
First day of school feeling that continues until probably November.
I agree.
So yeah.
For me, it's very nostalgic.
Yeah.
There's like a time of nostalgia in the fall. I always feel like, I don't know.
Badly?
It's like, it's not a bad feeling. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. Sensitive.
Okay.
It's not bad, but it
just makes you feel things.
Feel nostalgia. Yeah. And I'm okay with it, but it's like, I don't know why.
That.
The fall just makes me feel kind of emo, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I could see that because it's like the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And the leaves are falling and it's getting cooler and the nights are getting longer. And
so did you sit out at the bus stop with like a bunch of people? Because you had totally different
I moved a couple
area.
times, so it depends.
Okay.
So like when I was in elementary school, the bus came directly to my house.
Nice.
I had a next door neighbor and it was just me and the next door neighbor.
Right.
But then like in middle school, the bus stop was like, I think there was like 20 kids at the bus stop.
Wow.
And
why even?
Well, because we lived
for one bus, maybe.
We lived right next door. That bus was so full that kids like were sitting in
in the aisle.
In the aisle.
Are you serious?
It was crazy.
It's not legal.
It's not. It's not safe,
Nope.
and it was not a great area necessarily. So like we lived next to a development that had a lot of kids in it, and so that's why there were so many kids on the bus.
It's kind of fun though.
Well, kind of fun until they were all like throwing rocks at one kid. It was like Lord of the Flies over there.
Were their parents waiting too?
No, this was not a time when parents waited at the bus stop with children.
That rule was
they do that now.
Later.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then we moved to the other side of town, and then there was like I think maybe 2 or 3 other kids who were at the bus stop with me.
Interesting. That's nice though. You always had a little group. We had I liked the beginning of school too. I didn't feel dread. I felt nostalgic and excited. And during the summer, like my house was very isolated from other kids because it was up on the mountain and it was up the dirt road.
You're like Heidi.
Yeah, sure. Except for
living with grandpa.
And there was a neighbor. There were always like a neighbor or two, but you'd have to really walk to find somebody my age. And so by the time school started, even if I was doing like summer theater stuff, and looking back on the journals, which I'm glad we didn't have to read, I remember like it looked during the summer like I was really missing all my friends. And then I wanted to see them. So I was excited about the start of school.
That's nice.
I like just write journal entries. I'm like, I think so-and-so's probably doing this right now.
Oh.
Like, this person's doing this. And so then once the start of school began, it was, I finally get to see my friends. So that was exciting. But academically, I wasn't that excited, I don't think, about that aspect of it.
Well, yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
But school is such a
variety of things.
Yeah, there's so much that's like all intertwined with it. It's social. It's
exactly
academic. It's all kinds of stuff. All rolled into one.
Yeah, and I liked things like art class and English class and all that stuff. So I would always look forward to those.
Yeah.
I dreaded math. Even though I think I could have been good at it if I had more confidence earlier.
I think that's true. I also dreaded it, and I got bad grades in it.
Me too. And I cheated off of Stevie Blair's paper all the time. So I didn't get that bad of grades.
I should have cheated more.
But it was not fair. So.
Ooh, I really definitely should have in geometry. That was rough.
Geometry, I felt like I got better than algebra.
No, I got algebra a little bit better. And geometry, I just had a really hard time with. And then trig was like
I know.
geometry on steroids, so I pretty much almost failed that.
And then I didn't even go to pre-cal.
I never even took a
honors
calculus
English.
class in my life,
Honors English. I like science too, but
me too.
Not chem. I didn't like chem.
I liked chemistry.
Really?
Yeah, I loved
funny
it.
That we're different. All right. Well, let's talk. This kind of ties into school because we do have a lot of teens who come in looking for the classics.
Yeah.
And so we read 2 classics today. So you read Little Women. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. So Little Women, as almost everyone in this world knows,
yes,
follows a family of 4 girls, the March sisters, their mother, and later their father, who comes home from the war eventually.
Yes.
Spoiler.
That was a big surprise scene.
And really, it's just each of their own sort of little evolution from girl to woman, I guess.
It's definitely
really
a coming of age, real life story, but.
And it's like got like it's like the whole thing is just almost like little vignettes of their lives.
I really enjoyed that book, but it's been a long time since I read it. I read 1984, which is a far cry from Little Women.
Yeah, totally, completely different. Would be probably in different classes.
Probably. This one centers on Winston, who works for a place called the Ministry of Truth, and they go to great ends to rewrite history to suit their own needs. He's a part of the party, but he's at like a low level. I don't think he doesn't seem very important, but he's doing an important job. He knows he's supposed to ignore his eyes and ears and just consume what is being sent to him. But he's kind of one of those people who can't help but think freely from time to time. That does not turn out very well for him in the end. This was written in 1949 as a sort of like prophetic or maybe cautionary novel of the future. And despite it being an old book written about 1984, it does keep rising to attention again and again. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we dive more deeply into its plot. Oh, yeah. I didn't even say when Little Woman was written. When was that one? I don't know. In the 1800s, I think. Oh, right? I don't know. I don't Late remember. 1800s? I don't know. It's still relevant, though, I think. But actually, that's my first question. All right, ask your first question. So it's been a really long time, obviously, since I read it. But in my house, it was like a go-to story because I have 3 sisters and there are 4 sisters, right? Yes, I can imagine it so well. And so sometimes when I revisit books and movies that have been written a long time ago, they do not age well. Does this one hold up? How does it age? How do you feel about it? Okay, so I'm looking up when it was written. It was published in 1868 and 1869. So in 2 volumes. Nice. And they always are doing new editions because it just keeps being read. And the movie is coming out with like Saoirse Ronan and everything. So I think it's, good to read right now. So how does the story hold up? How does it hold up? I think there are elements of the story that hold up really well because it's such a very like human story that you can really identify with a lot of the characters and the trials that they go through. And the trials are not anything that's like, it's not Hercules. They're not out there digging up treasure. No, but it's totally just like little things like, when you're slighted at a party or when you overhear someone making fun of you or when you desperately want to fit in with someone or, like things like that. Or you fall in love, but you have other things you want to do too. Yes, it's just about like life. How to navigate these true life situations. There are parts of it that I think don't hold up as well. And a lot of that is like the sort of moralizing because it's very heavy-handed. Okay, got it. None of it is like bad things where you wouldn't be like, well, like none of it's like, oh, you're a woman and you should never say anything. Like, right. It's not like that, but it is like, oh, I shall bear my, burdens with joyful smiles. And like when someone else is not bearing their burdens well, Marmee will be like, look at how Amy bears her sadness. Interesting. Let her be a model to you. But does she react well to it? Things like that. Well, they talk about how Amy has a lot of grace and tact. And she doesn't really. Jo doesn't. Jo has none of that. See, what I think has a lot of honesty and authenticity. I literally heard that conversation the other day, just in one of the extracurriculars that I brought my kid to. It's like, don't freak out. You can go back out there. Look at how Jack is doing. Go look at Jack. He's doing great. And I'm like, that kid feels like garbage right now. Don't compare him to another person. So there's that. Yeah. That's still relevant, that dynamic where you're always being compared to somebody else or look at so-and-so who's being a model student at the moment. And if you're not, this is really a good read. It's true. And I do think Jo is like such a great modern character. She will never not be. As long as women are still not totally equal in our society, Jo will be relevant. Interesting. Because she desires so greatly
to have freedom and independence.
Right.
To be
taken seriously.
Yes. To be economically independent.
Yeah.
To just really be able to like live her dreams, but also just like live her everyday life the way she wants to.
Right.
She talks constantly about how she wishes she had been born a boy.
Interesting.
How she wishes, like she loves the company of men because she feels like she can be more relaxed. She just loves to like joke and race and be like rough and tumble and all the things that girls just really
the opposite of Amy.
Supposed
who's
to
got
be.
the poise. Yes, got it.
And so she's always like, oh, I wish I was born in a different time. Or, oh, I wish I had been born a boy. Or, oh, I wish I could just walk around in boys' clothes. And
interesting.
she says it constantly. And it's really interesting because I'm like, I think you can really understand her, where she's coming from.
Sure.
Because we today do have a lot more freedom to like express ourselves the way we want to.
Yeah.
But we're still sort of trapped and not really free to totally
just be whatever we feel we are. There you go.
And so,
well, which sister do you relate most to Jo? Because my next question was, which sister are you most like? And I'm feeling like you do kind of relate to Jo.
I
maybe
want to, but I think I'm more of a Meg.
Liz told me I was a Meg, and I was like, I feel like I'm a Jo.
You're a Jo. The whole time I was reading it, I was like, okay, Erin's Jo. But I sadly am a Meg.
Why? I love Meg.
I know. Well, that's the thing, right? So Meg and Jo are like best friends. So it just goes to show.
Meg is smart. Meg takes care of things. Meg is like Marmee. She's going to like get what she needs to done, but also tell off the teacher if the teacher needs to be told off.
Yes. So this is why I feel like Meg, because I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the things she said, I felt I would have also done the same in that situation. She's the oldest.
Yes.
She kind of like feels a little responsibility, kind of like a little mother for her family. She wants things. Like, she sees her rich friend Sally, and she wants the life Sally has. Sally, has like servants and a beautiful house and beautiful dresses all the time. And
I do like the dresses.
Jewelry and whatever. And Meg's always like, I guess I shall bear being poor. But like,
there's a lot of wanting in the book.
There is. And I get it.
Which I think is human.
It's very human.
That's why it resonates.
The way she deals with it is like, I don't know, I identified greatly with Meg. Jo is someone I think that people really can admire. And I wish that I was more like Jo. Just do your own thing. But I care too much about what people think. So that's why I'm a Meg.
I know. Jo is just kind of a loose
Beth
cannon.
is just like whatever even is Beth.
Which is what the tricky part of having sisters is, because you're all supposed to be like, okay, well, Amber's Meg, I'm Jo, Casey's Beth. And you don't want to be the one who like
is frail and
I know, but she's not. She's so not a Beth. But you have to stick her somewhere.
Well, maybe there can be two someone's.
I want to rewrite it with a better Beth ending, because I feel like Beth she was having a rough time, and then.
Yeah, that's your next question.
Do you have a favorite scene? What was it? Hopefully not Beth's death. Please tell me.
So I have a confession, and the confession is I did not finish this.
But you got close.
I got really close.
It is big.
It's enormous. I did have 3 weeks to read it. I got about 3/4 of the way through.
That's pretty good. Do you think you're going to finish it?
I am. I have it in the car right now as an audiobook, so I'm going to keep listening to it.
All right, cool.
I'll get you updated next week. Let's see. My favorite scene so far. Yeah, it's hard to say because there are a lot of things that annoy me about a lot of the scenes. But I think that one of my favorites, just like images, is of Jo writing up in her attic with her like special writing hat that has like a little ribbon on it.
I love it too.
And she's got like a little suit that she wears, and she has a rat who's her best friend up there.
Doesn't sound like the best place ever.
Yes. And they all know how she's feeling about her writing based on the hat.
Right.
So like if she's wearing it and it's like jauntily placed, they're like, okay, we can talk to her because she's doing all right. But like if she's wearing it askew or it's like drooping down, then they leave her alone because they know something bad is happening. And then like if it's on the ground, then they like are worried about her. Okay. So I think it's interesting and fun. And she's so like emotive. They all are. Mm-hmm. They have so many emotions, but Jo particularly. And I just love that image of her with her like whole writing garb on, like
Jo.
Putting on.
Yes.
This like special like uniform almost.
Yes. The writer's uniform.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's a black apron so that she can get ink all over it.
I know. That's so cool. That's how I picture writers, just with ink all over their fingers, even though that's so inaccurate for today.
I know. It's true. Oh, another thing that like sort of killed me about Jo, but also I thought was great, was the scene where she and Amy are going calling because Amy has like all of these visits she has to make.
Okay. Yeah, social visits. Yeah.
Social visits, which I don't really even understand 1860s social life. It seems very, very busy.
Yes.
But they have to go on all these calls. It is like Jo has no interest whatsoever, does not want to go. Nope. But I guess Amy can't go alone. So she begs Jo to go with her. Jo is finally like, fine.
I'll do it.
And she
hates it the whole time.
It's kind of an ass the whole time. Where she like is acting. So like in the first house, she's like, okay, I'll pretend to be this character.
Oh God, that's
and then in the second one, she'll be like, okay, I'll pretend to be like this way. And Amy's like, can you please just be normal? And she's like, all right, I won't say anything. So she goes to one and says like absolutely nothing. Even when people are talking to her, she just like pretends she's mute. So she's such a character.
Yes.
It drives Amy insane.
Yes. But that's okay. Amy has her revenge later.
Yeah. True. So that was another fun one.
All right. I was going to ask you about the ending, but I didn't know you didn't get there. That's okay. That's okay.
I mean, I've seen the movie, so
you know how it ends.
Kind of know how it ends. I don't know if it's the same.
But that's okay, because I'm going to skip to, well, do you think it's an important book for teens to read today? Or could they just skip it and it doesn't matter?
I think...
Is that complicated?
You know what? I mean, I feel like I've been fine and I've gotten along in this life without reading it. So, like, it's not going to ruin your life
Courtney.
if you don't. But
Courtney.
I do think it's a worthwhile read.
And like I said,
I think it has a lot of interesting elements in it. And it's a look into a world that often we don't get a pretty good look at, which is just like the women's world of like, 1865. It's like Civil War time. So what were women really doing, especially Northern women, because we get a lot of sense of like Southern women and what they were doing and, that whole like plantation life, which I think is pretty well documented.
Gone with the Wind type thing?
And you learn about it? What?
Is that like the Gone with the Wind? I haven't read
It's like Gone with the Wind type stuff, which is like not great of a book and you probably shouldn't read it. That should probably be gone from the canon if it's even still in there because it's pretty racist.
People still come and look for it. So
yeah. So I feel like we hear a lot about like Southern life, but what do we hear about Northern life? We don't really know a lot about it.
Not a lot. And it was written as a contemporary novel, and now it's an interesting historical fiction novel.
Right.
Really.
So it's like, wow, these girls like had, I think, the same fears, hopes, dreams, everything. They're so human that we have still today. And they wore like different clothes and there were different social conventions, but they were actually a lot freer than you would have imagined. Like they hang out with Lori, their next door neighbor.
All the time.
All the time. And he's just like always getting into hijinks and they're like, oh, you're so bad. And they love each other so much, all of them. And they care so deeply for each other. And Marmee is like this like,
I like Marmee.
Saint of a mother who's just always does the right thing.
I know. So you could say you could get by without it, but it might be interesting to read.
Read it, but give it a try, I would say.
Give it a whirl.
Don't let the size of it scare you because it's actually not that hard.
Or grab the audiobook.
It's just voluminous. So
Right.
Anyway, switching gears entirely. 1984.
Yeah.
Totally different era.
Yes.
Totally different thing. So mine's like a happy home life thing.
Right.
Yours is
dark dystopian.
Okay.
I think
so. I'm going to start with my burning question.
Yes.
It seems like 1984 is getting mentioned an awful lot these days. You just read it for the first time. Did it strike you as a timely read? It was from 1949. Is it still relevant?
I think it totally is. actually in 2017, it popped back up to the bestseller list. And I think they said something like it went up.
Oh.
Its sales went up exponentially in 2017. So granted, it feels old. I mean, it feels a lot older than today, and the tech's obviously a different species. But the idea, I think, that people point to as far as relevancy is the idea of truth being scrambled and regurgitated to the party, quote unquote, the party, and that it's gobbled up without question or thought from the consumer. In the Trump presidency, we've all heard of alternative facts and quarrels with how the free press is reporting certain things, and it becomes an issue, and that's definitely in 1984. Although I want to be honest and fair, so I don't think we can just point at one party. In 1984, they talk a lot about thought criminals, people who think independently of the party, and how those people are dangerous outliers. And this also feels relevant to me in terms of just like the information era that we're in. I'm trying to give you an example of what I mean, and it's probably going to be inarticulate, but you know how we have information coming at us from all different angles, and we also have control of our feed. Right? Our particular news feed. So we, for one, and this is something I noticed about myself when I was on social media, which I'm not anymore. So this obviously is great for me because it just feeds my paranoia. But anyway, so when you're on social media and you're seeing a lot of information come through and it's from a variety of sources, which is great, you can actually choose what not to look at and delete people that you disagree with. And you can also, so it's tailored to your particular preferences.
Yes.
And then one thing I also notice is sometimes with our busy lives and the frenzy of the newsfeed is going deep is sometimes difficult. So you might like a headline, but are you reading it for depth? And so that felt really resonant to me because we're talking about taking something at face value, and we're talking about tailor-made news. And so you can kind of create your own ministry of truth, as they call it, in this Orwellian novel. And so that, I think, both of those things, one is, you know, rewriting history or quarreling with the press is relevant. And so is the idea of just having your own little bubble that you live in and putting on the blinders. But I want to think the best of us and think that we're all paying attention.
Maybe.
In terms of information and Big Brother.
I think people have a hunger for information.
But there's also
not
like life.
Always consuming.
There's always also life
truth.
That's just like making you maybe not pay attention to this or that. Like the immediate problem in front of you is, okay, my kid's sick and home.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
like that kind of thing. And then you'll miss something.
It's true.
And it could be.
Well, there's so much being thrown at you.
Right. So it felt relevant to me is what I'm saying.
Good. That's good. And now all the people are reading it. So there you go. So 1984 is where we get the term Big Brother, which you just mentioned. And I'm sure, have all heard. I mean, they made a show about it. So,
right, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about this original idea of Orwell's Big Brother?
Okay.
How it functions, what it is?
So it has many branches, but the Big Brother in the book's basically a form of government that's a hear-all, see-all government, much like you get in many dystopian novels. Think V for Vendetta. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Or think Handicapper General by Kurt Vonnegut, or The Giver by Lois Lowry, or Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, if you're looking at YA. The dystopian novel, obviously, in YA, like had a huge boom after the Hunger Games, but obviously it's been around for a long time. So in this particular one, what do we see? We see radicalization of youth. They're basically like turned into spies at a young age to speak for the party, and they get their parents in trouble, and soon they'll be vaporized. So there's vaporization, or they're shooting rockets at the proles. There's also this idea of these telescreens that are constantly watching.
Yes.
Hi, cell phone. We see you there.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I'm just pointing that out. And then there's also military that patrols the streets, and you do not want to be caught even looking like you're thinking about something.
Right.
Because then you're going to be in trouble. So I think some of the comfort of his job. Did you ask me what that? No.
This is just like Big Brother. What is it?
Yeah, so that's Big Brother.
Okay.
Always watching, always listening.
My next question is, can you talk a little bit about the Ministry of Truth? Like, what is Winston's job? And like, might there be an appeal to something called the Ministry of Truth? Because I feel like people are looking for something that's like a definitive. Like,
I know, but no, that's dangerous.
Real.
We don't know. Okay,
so talk about it.
So Winston's job is to rewrite. It's creepy. It's a creepy job. Winston's job is, at first it felt very monotonous to me and mailroomish. I'm just seeing him like in this room that's kind of dank and dark, and he gets this information, and then his job is to rewrite the news or the history rather. And at this point in 1984, freedom of the press has long since vanished, and all party members receive their news directly from the Ministry of Truth. So regardless of reality, they're saying the Ministry of Truth says, hey, the economy was better this year. And even if you were like, wait a minute, but it wasn't, the facts show that it wasn't. Everybody says, oh, great, it was. It's better this year. So they basically just consume the information and go with it. I think the appeal is that it's steady and safe. And the danger that is that he's not really thinking for himself. He doesn't have to make hard decisions. And yet the danger is also that he loses his humanity. He uses his free thinking.
Oh, just that?
He does fight this, and he wants to learn the truth, but does not go well for him, ultimately, I would say. If you remember. You read it, right?
Yeah. And then I read the Spark Notes about it, too, to like bone
refresh.
Up for this. Yes. So this was required reading for me in high school. Do you wish you had read this then, or are you glad you read it now?
I am glad I read it now. I think I would have liked it then, too. I think I would have dug it, but probably more than Brave New World, which I was required to read, which I thought was...
Oh, I think I read that one, too.
I think I was not that impressed by Brave New World. I don't know why. I just wasn't interested.
Does that one have an airplane?
I don't know. They have pills that make them feel better, but that's like normal. Maybe. So maybe I'm going to give that one another go, too. Might as well. Just get a bunch of dystopians and old dystopians and read through them.
That sounds like a wild and crazy fun weekend. Wow. And then you'll be like, well, I live there. You don't even have to read them. You're already living it.
We did talk about so many relevancies.
Oh, my gosh. All right. No, it's fine. Never mind. We're trying to be apolitical on this show, I guess.
I don't think I qualify. Did I?
I don't know. Let's talk about that depressing ending.
The ending. Apathy. The ending is depressing. He just goes back to being mind controlled, basically.
Well, he's forced to.
I know. I just wanted him to be more of a hero.
I know, but I think the whole point is like you can't
escape apathy, guys. You must.
You can't.
We have to.
The party.
Well, I don't know. It just made me want to burn myself out and go live off the grid.
Sounds great.
Doesn't that sound great?
Yes.
They'd find you. Because we all use our internet all the time. Can't you get off? How can you even get off the grid?
Show just to find out when the book was written.
They're going to be like selling you all Louisa May Alcott paraphernalia.
I know. That's fine. That's kind of fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, good reading. What's up next?
Good reading. It was interesting. Next up, I want to do New York Times bestsellers because sometimes I love the New York Times bestsellers, and sometimes I'm like, this book was super overrated, and I'm ticked off that it's on the New York Times bestseller list. Well, I have
read that there are some like weirdo things that publishers sometimes do
to get it there,
get it at the top.
Oh, interesting. So I'm going to read one which I actually think is probably there because it's fantastic because I liked her other books, but we'll see. With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. And Courtney, what are you going to read?
I'm going to read 5 Feet Apart by Lippincott. What's her first name?
Rachel, I think.
Rachel Lippincott, yeah.
And remember, if you get a chance to answer our 3 questions, we would love to hear from you. Actually, it's 2 questions this time. And those 2 were, what did you do in your summers? Did you camp? Did you go to your grandma's house? Did you work? Did you do plays? Write to us. Let us know.
And how did you feel about school starting? Were you excited? Were you like doing everything in your power to
make it stop?
Make it not happen?
And likewise, if you have any questions about reading recommendations or library life, please write to us at teentitletalk@gmail.com, and we'll read a few of our listener responses next time.
Thank you for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and Derry-CAM, Derry Community Access Media, empowering independent voices. As always, you can find us pretty much anywhere you would listen to a podcast. iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, Player FM. Just search for Teen Title Talk. Don't forget to hit follow so you can hear the latest episode. Our theme was created and performed by Banded Starling. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.